This is Mike from fearshop.com. Make sure you like this video and leave your comments. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to set up notifications so you know when the next video drops. Let's get into it. We're talking about the top 10 greatest vampire horror movies of all time. We're not going to be talking about sparkling vampires, but we will talk about brutal vampires and beautiful movies. This is a fun list to put together. Before we get into the top 10 list, let's have a look at some honorable mentions. 30 Days of Night from 2007. A small Alaskan town prepares for an annual polar night, a month-long period where the sun disappears from the horizon, where there is 30 days of night. But with the excruciatingly long night, it becomes a lot more terrifying when a band of bloodsuckers arrive with plans to feast on the town's residents. These are not your sparkling vampires by any means. Thirst from 2009. Fans of Park Chan-wook may have been blindsided by Thirst. I certainly was. After creating two of the best South Korean movies ever made in Old Boy and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Chan-wook unleashes Lady Vengeance, in which the violence continues. What changed was the humor in Lady Vengeance. This new tactic has become part of his stylistic habits as a writer and director, and Thirst was the first time where it felt like he was pushing his style into an entirely new realm of thought and perspective. Near Dark, 1987. After spending the previous decade in sexploitation films, vampires re-emerged in the 80s as postmodern, leather-clad punks, and that look gave filmmakers a lot of new angles to play with. Gangs, bikers, and junkies. All of these groups run in packs and engage in more dangerous behaviors than the old-fashioned singular vampires of old. Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark is one of the best of 1980s vampire movies. Next up is Cronos from 1993. Guillermo del Toro's first feature as a director, following short film and television work, is a visually audacious tale of immortality. In terms of the special makeup effects that would come to define del Toro's career, Cronos was way ahead of its time, accomplishing grotesque feats in camera that would now be relegated to post-production. When an antiques dealer, played by Federico Lupi, stumbles upon an ancient scarab-like device, you know you're in for it, and he soon becomes possessed by an everlasting powers and winds up hunted by Ron Perlman as a devious mystery man named Angel who has a sinister agenda all his own. Next up is Subspecies from 1991. Three young women travel to Transylvania and do some research on the local myths and legends. Little do the three of them know that soon they're going to be in the presence of one of Transylvania's most infamous superstitions. Directed by Ted Nicolau and starring Anders Hove, Laura May Tate, Michael Watson, we are introduced to Radu, the main vampire in the film and the entire series. Radu is not a sparkly vampire, and he's definitely not a pretty boy, nor is he an emotional creature. He's gruesome and vicious. I could possibly be convinced to put most of the films in the series on this list, but I'm just going to pick this one. This is a beautiful film shot in Romania, where everything outside of Radu looks beautiful. Alright, now let's get into our top 10 list. We're going to start it off with number 10, Vampires from 1998. John Carpenter's known for a little film called Halloween and a ton of other great films. People tend to forget about vampires all the time. James Woods is Jack Crow, the leader of a gang of vampire slayers who are all but wiped out completely when they come up against Jan Valak, a powerful bloodsucker looking for a talisman that will allow him to walk freely in sunlight. There's no attempt to make Crow into a role model. He is a badass. The film is shot well, makes good use of gore, contains impactful action sequences, and sports a solid cast that includes Mark Boone Jr., Cheryl Lee, and Maximilian Schell. Next up is Fright Night from 1985. Tom Holland's Fright Night features a delightfully hammy performance from Roddy McDowall as an actor who kills vampires on TV and is sought by our teens, William Ragsdale, Amanda Burse, and Stephen Jeffries. They want to vanquish the suave vampire played by Chris Sarandon, who lives next door, taunting them by having a new female victim over every night. The film was remade in 2011, which ended up being a decent remake, but I hold the original near and dear. Number 8, The Lost Boys from 1987. Bloodsucker's got a punk rock spin with this late 80s Joel Schumacher horror comedy in which two brothers, Jason Patrick and Corey Haim, discover that their new town is controlled by a gang of vampires led by bleach blonde Kiefer Sutherland. Number 7. Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. It's really too bad that Francis Ford Coppola had to be judged based on the Godfather trilogy. When Coppola got a little weird with films, they were met with backlash. His take on the Dracula lore specifically was dismissed as nothing more than a camp item at best, with lead actors Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, and Keanu Reeves receiving some critical bruises along the way. Coppola's visual expression of immortality and insatiable lust that goes beyond mere sex, entering into a surreal realm of physical hunger. Tom Waits makes for a great Renfield, but the film belongs to Oldman, who plays each version of the Dracula character to perfection. Number 6. From Dusk Till Dawn from 1996. Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn is one of the two films in one lo-fi experience with Grindhouse that was supposed to be. The first half follows some natural-born killers and George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino as they rob banks and convenience stores in a crime spree that's headed for south of the border. They kidnap a man of faith, Harvey Keitel, and his daughter, Juliette Lewis, and force him to stop at Titty Twister to celebrate their cross into Mexico. A fight breaks out for the club siren, played by Salma Hayek, and then the second genre flick kicks in because the Twister is a coven of vampires, and anyone who lives is going to have to fight until dawn. Number 5. Nosferatu the Vampire from 1979. Werner Herzog's breathtaking remake of F.W. Murnau's 1922 essential Nosferatu is both an homage to what considers the most important German film of all time and a definitive entry into his own career that cements his status as one of modern cinema's most poetic artists. When making Nosferatu, Murnau famously couldn't access the rights to Dracula, so he adapted the material to his needs, changing names and locations in a bold move that resulted in a cinematic masterpiece that was almost entirely struck from existence as a result of retaliatory lawsuits from Bram Stoker's widow. By the time Herzog got his hands on the material for Nosferatu the Vampire, Dracula had fallen into the public domain, so the filmmaker was able to merge the two great source materials into one of the finest horror dramas of all time. Number 4. Dracula from 1931. There remains something impressive about the haunting stillness of Todd Browning's original Dracula from 1931. The black and white cinematography remains gorgeous, and Browning's shots compositions are exquisite. If you want psychological menace, that's not what this is about. Bela Lugosi's take on the character is one that stresses his regal bearing, his veneer of the aristocracy, and an age-old class. Browning sees the confidence in such a creature and also the wisdom. Lugosi's creature wears his world-weariness, intellect, and experience like a fitted suit, never straining to catch his victim, rather knowing that he has the power to ensnare them and turn them. There are plenty of imitators worthy of pointing out, but nothing beats the original in this regard. Number 3. Interview with the Vampire from 1994. Neil Jordan's adaptation of Anne Rice's novel is a super 90s film, with heartthrobs Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and Antonio Banderas playing brooding immortals, dealing with the neuroses that come with everlasting life and a desire for human blood. It's probably one of the most homoerotic movies ever made, and it introduced the world to Kirsten Dunst, who plays a maniacal child vampire. Number 2. Let the Right One In from 2008. Thomas Alfredson's 2008 Swedish vampire adolescent picture, Let the Right One In, is an impressive movie. Author John Ajvide Lindqvist adapted his own novel for the screenplay, which focused on the relationship between the shy and disturbed 12-year-old Oscar and a pale, mysterious new neighbor girl, Ellie. They soon form a bond over their similar shared oddities. Oscar's fascinated with grisly murders, and Ellie has an unnatural thirst for blood. That bond grows ever deeper as their true natures are revealed to each other. Oscar and Ellie learn to trust each other with their very own lives, a trust that is put to the test before the movie's horrifying yet uncomfortably heartwarming conclusion. Number 1. Nosferatu from 1922. In one of the earliest vampire films, and still to this day, one of the absolute best. F.W. Murnau does not attempt to romanticize his vampire, but instead presents him as diseased and Weasley shell. Count Orlok, played by Max Schreck, is a physical representation of death. With pointy ears and nose, he has a face of a scavenger and the long pale claws of a devil. Murnau does not attempt to film Schreck in a manner that would imply that he used to be human. There is nothing romantic about this vampire. So that wraps this one up. I want to hear from you. Post your top 10 vampire horror movies of all time in the comments. Let me know which movies in my list you agree with and which ones you disagree with. That's it for this episode. Make sure you like this video, make sure you share this video, make sure you subscribe, but most of all, make sure you keep it horror.